Hi, I'm Alex DeLucia, your host for today's segment of Brookfield Today and Beyond. Brookfield Today and Beyond is a program brought to you by the Brookfield Republican Town Committee. If you would like to submit questions for future interviews, I would encourage you to contact us at www.brookfieldgop.com. Today I'm being joined by Steve O'Reilly,
Hi,
candidate
Alex.
for First Selectman. Hi, Steve. And George Walker, candidate for Selectman.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Let's start, I think, with the issue that got the most press since the last time we spoke, and it seemed to be somewhat didn't quite give you full effort towards your efforts. Let's talk a little bit about the debate situation. What can we look forward to in terms of debates?
Okay, well, we do have two debates scheduled, one on October 19th and one on October 26th. The debates are being sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce and the Brookfield Patch.
Okay.
And we certainly felt that debates were warranted, and we thought we would do the two debates. We've got a busy schedule in front of us, and frankly, we couldn't fit in the League of Women Voters debate, and we thought two was plenty anyway.
And two should be more than adequate to cover the issues in this town. We, like I say, we have a lot of other things that we are doing out there, and Steve is going to be involved with the first debate, which is the Chamber of Commerce debate on the 19th. That's a Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock at Wisconsin School, and he'll be debating Mr. Davidson at that point. And the next debate, which is the following Wednesday, which is also going to be at the Wisconsin School, is being sponsored by the Patch. And that will be for all four of the selectmen at that point. It'll be Steve and Mr. Davidson and myself and Mr. Lasser who will be reviewing that. So I think we feel there's plenty of opportunity to review the issues and the programs at that particular point. And there's a lot of other information for the constituents and voters and the potential voters out there that are going to be, we're distributing flyers, information flyers that are coming out in the Penny Saver, the Danbury News Times, and so forth. So there's plenty of opportunity to find out what our issues are, who we are, and so forth. And at any time that anybody would like to, please come over to the Republican headquarters at 270 Federal Road, and they can come over there and discuss issues with us most weekends and so forth. So.
Great. Now, I just want to make sure anybody who is interested in seeing one of the debates, that is going to be Wednesday, October 19th, and again, Wednesday, October 26th at Wisconsin Middle School at 7 p.m. in the evening, and the candidates would welcome your input. That said, let's, if I were to highlight a difference between you and your candidates in terms of the way you've approached things, it seems that you guys are really focused on holding the line on taxes and spending. Do you think that's important to the voters in Brookfield today?
Well, I think particularly in today's economic situation, I think most people are concerned about taxes and spending, and George and I are committed to holding the line on that. It's been tough with the recession. We've heard from more people that their number one priority is taxes, and we plan on addressing it.
And Alex, relative to that, a lot of, unfortunately, in today's economic times, there's a lot of unemployment that's out there, and there are people in Brookfield that are not immune from that. In addition, we have seen a decrease in the value of homes, and that results in some homes going in, what the term that's used is, it goes underwater, relative, not literally, but figuratively, and they're going underwater economically. They owe more on the house in their mortgage than the house is actually worth. That's a terrible situation to be in, and yet the taxes continue to creep up on them and go beyond that. As a matter of fact, I was earlier today, I was at Candlewood Shores at a tag sale that they had over there, and had an opportunity to meet with a number of constituents. I just randomly walked through the crowd, introducing myself, handing out flyers, and I heard this taxes, taxes, taxes. I mean, it's incredible the economic situation that a lot of our constituents are in as a result of the tax situation that we've put them into with this creep up of the taxes. And we intend to start to try to pull the spending down, which holds those taxes.
It seems that a recurring theme in your candidacy versus the people who are running against you has been that you are listening to the people of Brookfield, and the current leadership tends to think they know what's best and they will impose their will. I mean, I might be slightly overstating your case, but why don't we talk a little bit about the issue of and Green Ridge Water as an example of you treating the taxpayers as valued customers.
Well, I mean, I'll start. Yeah, the Green Ridge is not a town project. The water that the Green Ridge residents get, they're going to pay for. And because they're going to pay for it, I think they should have a say-so in what water company they want. Yeah, there's no reason why Mr. Davidson and Mr. Lassett took sides in this. It's not a town-funded project. The residents need it; they're paying for it, and why we're looking at giving us 2 cents in on what company we want as a town it's irrelevant to me. It's the Green Ridge people who should decide.
It's a very complex situation up there, and I took the time to very thoroughly read all of the briefs. There must be 200 pages of and more of detail that's available on that. And I read the briefs. I read the United brief, or United Water, and the Aquarian brief, and I read the town brief, and on and on. There are a number of briefs there, and I think it's unfair that Mr. Davidson and Lasser took that position to literally take sides and recommend the Aquarian proposal there, because I think the public utility people up in Hartford really need to take an objective look at this. And quite frankly, as I read through this and I understand the situation, I look at it right now, is that the folks in Green Ridge literally would have had their water by now had that project been allowed to proceed when it was going forward. I think the situation we're into now, it really clouds the issue. It's become unfortunately, it has become a political issue. And this is going, eventually these folks are going to get water, but they shouldn't have had to wait as many years as they've had. And I think that the United Water really was the way to go, that they should have let it go. And I won't get into levels of detail here because we spent hours and hours of some of the discussion at a public meeting not too long ago. And I think that it was unfair that the people up in Green Ridge were not listened to.
And as another example, I guess, of people not being listened to, we've got the charter revision that's going to be coming up. And there are a number of issues that will be explored as part of that. And I know one of them where you both feel somewhat strongly about how it should be approached is the issue of splitting the budget, having people vote separately on the education budget and the town spending budget. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, why you feel that's important, and how our current leadership has dealt with that?
Well, again, I'll begin. At the last charter revision committee, the split budget came up, and many people who voted for that thought they were actually voting to split the budget. What we have the option right now to split the budget. I think it's just important that we give the people a choice. We let them decide on the budget and the Board of Ed budget and the town budget. And I'm a strong proponent of that. And going forward, I will always vote for a split budget.
The there's a subcommittee or a committee that's currently working on the proposals for how to approach the charter downstream. Right? We know that, a lot of people know that, a lot of townspeople unfortunately don't know that, but there's a lot of things that are going to be coming down that most likely will not occur prior to this election. That's an issue for another day, I suppose. But the one area that I know that Steve and I are very adamant about is that split budget is essential as we go forward. That should become a part of our charter revision. And Mr. Davidson and Mr. Lasser have resisted that again and again and again along the way. And the townspeople have had to force the issue. When they voted against it, the townspeople have had to come forward and force the issue to get the split budget.
If I can just add one point
Yep.
to that. George and I are not going to hide behind an attorney's opinion, with the advisory questions. The town attorney says, well, you can't have them. And that's ridiculous. We've had advisory questions for years, and now we can't have them anymore. And that takes away the people's right to voice their opinion. And I will not hide behind a town attorney's opinion. I just won't do it.
I was going to say, as I recall, the Board of Finance supported the idea of splitting the budget, but the two gentlemen who are there were able to force at the Board of Selectmen's issue that it not be split, and then it had to go to a referendum to get the split.
Right, and I can say this, if Steve and I are elected, that will not happen again.
Great. Well, I guess another area that has been of concern for people for as long as I've been a resident of this area has been the issue of Four Corners development. Why don't we talk a bit about the STEEP grant and talk about what we can look forward to there coming forward. Steve?
Okay. And on the Board of Selectmen, I had voted to spend the $75,000 of the STEEP money to hire this consultant to do a good study on the Four Corners. In my mind, it made sense to spend state money versus local money. When we went to the town meeting and we had the vote, I voted in the affirmative, and I was very surprised that the motion went down. And I thought to myself, I said, well, what am I missing here? Why are so many people voting against this? So when Mr. Davidson requested a recount, I thought at the time, I said, let me step back and let me start to talk to some people and see what's going on. And so I voted against it. In the following week and a half, 2 weeks, I probably spoke to a good two dozen people to get their feeling for why, for the Four Corners area. And I came away from those conversations convinced that we needed to do something in the Four Corners. You can't have the Brookfield hardware store vacant and advertising, 2 years free rent, and nobody takes it. So at the end of the day, when it came up again, I said, well, we got to do something, and I did vote for it.
Yeah, and I think just to dwell on that, we need a plan. And this looks like this is going to be, if it's voted. By the way, this is going to be voted on by the Board of Finance. That was approved at the last meeting, but it is also going to be voted upon by the constituents in the community as well, the voters in the town. They'll have an opportunity to vote affirmatively or negatively on that steep grant, spending at $75,000. I happen to be somebody who believes that we need some form of a plan up there. We need to have something happen. The poor property owners who are up there, they're getting more and more leases as they expire, or people just going out of business. I mean, it's just a ghost town up there sometimes. But there needs to be a much, and by the way, this should have, shame on this, our town leaders for the last 10, 15 years that didn't take care of this, watching the bypass be built out there. They knew it was going to be completed. This was not rocket science to figure out that the traffic was this 30,000 cars a day that were going by those four corners now go on the bypass.
Right.
And maybe there's 3,000 to 4,000 cars a day. So it's significant reduction, and that has impacted those businesses. But that plan of action should have been not only put into play, but it should have been acted upon many, many years ago. So we do need something going forward. I know that Steve and I are going to, if we're elected, we'll certainly focus on how that's going to be done, whether it's a result of this plan or some other plan. We're going to see that something's going to be moving forward with these folks.
Yeah, and George certainly has the expertise in commercial real estate and putting together that type of development. And I think it's important that that George will be there to look at it.
Exactly, and you can't legislate development to happen. You have to make the area, whether it's the zoning and the area, some marketing aspects of it, you have to make not only our community, but the Four Corners area to be a business-friendly area. And that comes with good planning, long-term planning, but we need to get moving forward on this thing. Like I say, this should have happened years ago, and we're going to see to it that we do move forward with some type of a good plan.
And I think that's important. While you're talking about retrenching vis-a-vis spending, you do have a vision for a growing community with a growing tax base. And not only have you talked about the Four Corners, and I don't know how much you've talked about it in public, but you've also talked about South Federal Road and water. So why don't we talk a little bit about that issue, what's involved there, how do you see it happening, and why is that important and good for the town?
Steve, if you want,
Why don't you start?
I know you haven't, poor Steve's got a little bit of a cold here today, so let me pick up a little bit of that and fill in that, because I think we speak with one voice on that.
Yep.
Number one is, we got to have the water on South Federal Road, okay? We see that as something that is absolutely desperately needed for not only some of the residential folks down there, but primarily for the businesses and our economic growth to go down there. There is a project that's up now that's going to take that South Federal Road extension to a certain point, and then it eventually will hook up and connect further down into Danbury. That will certainly enhance the economics, the economic viability of further expansion and in that particular area. One of the things that really concern me, and I voiced my opinion at one of the last meetings, was this $1 million contingency. It was like, oh my God, what are we doing here with $1 million contingency? I'm of the opinion if you hand politicians the tax dollars, they're going to spend it. They're not going to keep it in reserve. I'm very concerned that this $1 million contingency is going to be spent. I hope that I know there was an explanation at this meeting about that contingency being if it wasn't needed, it wasn't going to be used. But the problem is it's there, and so we need to be concerned about that. I think it should have been a lot lower contingency, and a lower contingency results many times as a result of better engineering, better planning. So there's a question about that plan at this particular juncture. But we do need that water. It needs to move forward. And I really wish that they had, when they put this plan together, they had gone all the way and hooked up to Danbury. Because if this gets approved, and I'm sure it will, going down Federal Road is going to get torn apart for a couple of years while that work goes on. We finish it up, and guess what? It's going to get torn up again a little bit further downstream, because once you finish that project, you're going to extend it on further. I think if it was going to happen, it should have happened all at once. But we do need that, and that will certainly enhance our economic base, tax base in the community.
You've expressed some concern over recreation projects, the Park and Rec project that had gone before the voters. Why don't we talk a little bit about what we see in terms of recreation spending at this time?
Well, Yeah, right now we've got a plan to build a bike path. But we're putting the cart before the horse because we're building this little parking area now for a bike path that the townspeople have not yet approved. It just seems silly to me to be doing this. The problem is that if the townspeople now decide against the bike path when it's presented, the town is going to have to pay $145,000 for this parking lot to nowhere, similar to the bike path to nowhere at this point. So, you know, we're just putting the cart before the horse. And why I voted against it, I said, let's have the people decide if they want the bike path and then go forward. But
that clearly, that bike path to nowhere is clearly a nicety, not the necessities that we need. In this economic times, we just don't need that. We didn't need it. And quite frankly, very clearly, this was nothing more than a political project to get something else out in time for the election. I mean, that's clearly what that is. They're not kidding anybody about that, and that's why we have this. I call it the bike path to nowhere. And the only reason it's not finished, they got caught up in the weather this year. So that's what we have there.
Overall, though, there's been a degree, I mean, whether we were talking about the Kicks to Kingdom or the town park, there's been a degree to which I think you've been critical that your opponents have been putting forward a wish list rather than a needs list. You want to address that further, perhaps, beyond the bike path?
Well, yeah, part of the problem that we've got too is we had almost 300 people sign a petition volunteering to help. And I think that could have saved the town a good chunk of change if we had utilized the volunteers. But now they've just been ignored. The people who wanted to help, they're not. And I think it's a real shame because it could have brought the community together, and the people were offering to help. But again, it's another example. Well, yeah, we know better. We'll do it our way.
Anything that you want to add to that,
Steve
Chuck?
was very eloquent on that. That's a tough one to add to. You know, Steve has the details on that, right dead on.
Well, as most men are, you guys both are in favor of paved roads. Yet, I've heard you both be critical about the way the current administration has approached paving the roads in Brookfield. Why don't we discuss that issue for the people in Brookfield so that they better understand why you feel the way you do?
Well, we're all in favor of paving the roads, and we know the roads have to be paved. Where we differ is we were paying down our long-term debt on the high school project. We had that money that we could have put into our annual operating budget, and we could have done the roads without taking on any additional debt. Now we're going to borrow money for 20 years. The life expectancy of a road is 10 to 12 years. So we'll be paying for roads that we got to redo anyway. We should have just put it in the budget. We could have done the same job, and we could have continued. And right now, there's no money in the budget for roads, and that's going to cost about $1 million a year. And we're going to spend this $10 million, and then what do? You got to continue taking care of the roads, but there's no money in there right now. I don't know, George, what do you think?
Well, I think that, and I agree that it's great that we've got roads going forward, and the roads are being built, and I agree. This town had a road problem, and once again, shame on the past situation. But the way it was approached was they took the town credit card out, and this is my credit card, but they took the town credit card out, and they spent the money, or are spending the money, okay? And a lot of that the constituents in this town don't understand is that we're going to be paying, just like your credit card, every month, every year, there's an interest charge that goes with that. And it's just like buying a car with your credit card. Is long after that car is junked and gone, you're still paying interest and principal on it. And that's basically where we're at. And everybody's happy about the new roads. but we can't forget about paying off that credit card, and that's what that bonding is all about.
So it would be fair to say you probably would have done it, you just would have worked it into the budget, and thereby giving yourself future flexibility and future budget money.
Or a smaller bonding amount, or less spending. Let's bring it along, and as Steve and I go forward, we're looking to get funding into the budget so that we can pay for the future roads and not have to go and spend $10 million like we are doing right now.
Legal fees. I know you've been critical of the way the expenditures for legal fees have gone up. Why don't we talk a bit about that and why you think that's a particularly difficult issue or bothersome issue?
Well, freedom of information, for instance. Why are we forcing some of our residents who are looking for information to file a freedom of information? If the townspeople want information, we work for the townspeople. And if and when I'm elected, if somebody wants information, go get it. We don't need to. You don't need to.
You don't need to hide behind attorneys.
Yeah.
All right. Well, believe it or not, today's session is going to be ending. So with that, I'm Alex DeLucia, your host for today's segment of Brookfield Today and Beyond. Today's show has been brought to you by the Brookfield Republican Town Committee. If you have additional questions, we would invite you to contact us at www.brookfieldgop.com. Again, Steve O'Reilly, George Walker, thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
My pleasure.